Imagine sitting in your 8th grade math class. You know, the teacher's writing an equation on the board. Everything is perfectly normal.
Right, just a regular Tuesday.
Exactly. And then, out of nowhere, your heart starts hammering against your ribs so hard you can actually hear it.
Oh man, that is terrifying.
It really is. Your chest tightens. You literally can't draw a full breath. The room starts spinning, and your brain is just screaming at you with this absolute undeniable conviction that you are about to die.
Because your body is telling you that you are.
Yes. So you stumble out of the room, you rush to the nurse's office in sheer terror, and the adults look at you, cross their arms, and say, "Oh, you are just being dramatic."
Which is such a common reflex reaction from adults, sadly. But it's not just dismissive, it completely ignores the physiological reality of what that child is experiencing.
Right.
We tend to view sudden, intense emotions in kids as, I don't know, a behavioral issue,
Yeah.
maybe a plea for attention.
Yeah, acting out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rather than what it actually is in this scenario, which is an acute healthcare event.
And today, we are going to look at why that reflex calling a kid dramatic is dangerously wrong.
100%.
So whether you are a parent trying to navigate your child's sudden behavioral changes, or maybe an educator on the front lines in the classroom, or just someone fascinated by how public health infrastructure is adapting to youth mental health, this deep dive is absolutely for you.
It really touches on so many different areas of society right now.
It does. We are pulling from this really revealing guide by MentalSpace School that focuses specifically on childhood and adolescent panic disorder.
And how K-12 schools in Georgia are basically being forced to completely overhaul their support systems.
Right. We are going to explore what a panic attack truly is on a biological level, how clinicians actually reverse it, and how an entirely new model of care is bringing that treatment directly into the school building.
Because that shift really has to start with understanding the biology.
Yeah, break that down for us.
Well, a panic attack is not a mood swing, you
Yeah.
know. It is a full-body physiological cascade. The source material lays out these physical symptoms very starkly. It's a racing or pounding heart, active chest pain, trembling, dizziness, intense sweating, and just profound shortness of breath.
I mean, you are listing the exact symptoms of a heart attack.
Precisely.
If an adult felt those things, we would be calling an ambulance immediately. We wouldn't tell a 40-year-old in the office to just, take a deep breath and stop seeking attention.
Right, which is where the empathy disconnect usually happens with youth. When that fight or flight response is triggered in a child without any legitimate external threat.
Like a predator or a burning building or something.
Exactly. The adults around them only see the absence of the threat. They look around and see a safe math class.
So they assume the kid is faking it.
Right. But the child is experiencing the intense physical reality of the trigger. To them, the danger is entirely real because their body is telling them it is.
That profound feeling of doom.
Yes, it makes perfect sense when your own nervous system has hijacked your physical senses.
Now, that leads to a part of this that I genuinely don't fully get.
Okay, what's that?
Well, if you believe your body is failing, you obviously seek medical help. And the guide notes that kids often end up rushing to the emergency room, totally convinced they have a physical illness.
Which happens a lot, yeah.
Right, so let's say that happens. The kid gets to the ER, the doctors run an EKG, they check the blood oxygen levels, and a trained medical professional tells the child and the parents, "Good news, your heart is perfectly fine. Nothing is medically wrong."
The all clear.
Yeah, the all clear. Shouldn't that be the end of it? Like, why does being told you are completely healthy somehow lead to a long-term disorder?
That is the big question. So the reassurance at the ER might calm the child down for that specific night, but it leaves them completely in the dark about why it happened.
Oh, because they still felt it.
Exactly. The terror they felt was real, the chest pain was real, and yet the doctors are saying nothing is wrong. That creates a terrifying void.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
And this is the crucial distinction between a singular panic attack and panic disorder. A panic attack is an isolated event. Panic disorder is defined by recurrent, unexpected attacks paired with a persistent, consuming worry about having another one.
So it's not actually the physical attack that defines the disorder, it's the anticipation.
Yes,
It is the fear of the fear itself.
exactly.
Let me try an analogy here, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this. It feels like a building's fire alarm system severely malfunctioning.
Oh, I like that.
Right, like the bells are blaring, the strobe lights are flashing, and the people inside are terrified. So the fire department shows up, looks around, and says, well, there's no fire.
But they don't fix the alarm panel.
Yes, they don't fix the panel. So now everyone in the building is just constantly on edge, waiting for the sirens to randomly go off again.
That is a perfect analogy. And just like in that building, if you think the alarm is broken and could go off at any second, it changes how you behave.
You'd probably avoid certain rooms, right?
Exactly. The anticipatory anxiety completely takes over. Because the physical sensations of the attack were so utterly terrifying, the child starts modifying their life to avoid anything that might trigger another one.
Or any place where it would be embarrassing or dangerous to have one.
Right.
Which brings us to the avoidance behavior, because the text specifically highlights avoiding school as the most prominent consequence of this.
Yeah, think about the environment where the trauma happened.
The math class.
Right. If the last time you felt like you were suffocating and dying, you're sitting in the cafeteria or in the middle of an algebra exam, your brain naturally starts associating that specific environment with the trauma.
So the school itself becomes the trigger.
Yes.
Hmm.
The child starts refusing to go to school. And they aren't being truant or lazy, which is what people often assume.
They are literally in survival mode.
They are desperately trying to stay in a safe zone, usually their bedroom, to avoid the environment where they felt mortal danger.
I can easily see how that spirals so fast. The kid misses a few days of school. Then, it becomes a week.
And then the academic stress hits.
Right now they are falling behind academically, which adds general anxiety on top of the panic anxiety. The parents are missing work to stay home with them, which creates financial stress. It just disrupts the entire family ecosystem.
It paralyzes the family. I mean, the fear of the physical sensations completely dictates the child's behavior, which derails their education and social development. The disorder really feeds on its own avoidance.
Okay, so how do we actually fix the broken alarm panel?
That is the most important part.
Because it was a massive relief reading through this material to see them explicitly label this condition as highly treatable. You really don't often get unambiguous good news when reading about youth mental health crises.
No, you really don't.
The primary treatment they outline is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, combined with something called interoceptive exposure.
Yes, interoceptive exposure.
I want to translate that for you, the listener, because interoceptive exposure sounds like super dense clinical jargon.
It definitely does.
Is this essentially like getting an allergy shot? With an allergy shot, an immunologist gives you a tiny controlled dose of pollen to train your immune system not to overreact.
Okay, yes.
Are clinicians doing the same thing, but safely exposing the child to their own feared body sensations?
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
And just like an allergy shot, you don't start with a massive dose, you build up slowly.
Okay.
Interoception is just our ability to perceive sensations inside our own bodies, like feeling your heartbeat or noticing your breathing.
So for a kid with this disorder, just noticing their heartbeat is a trigger.
Exactly. For a child with panic disorder, walking up a flight of stairs might slightly elevate their heart rate. Their hypervigilant brain misinterprets that totally normal biological response as the start of a catastrophic panic attack.
Oh, wow. So they panic about the panic.
Right. So the treatment involves licensed clinicians guiding the child to gradually face those exact physical sensations in a safe setting.
What does that actually look like in a therapist's office, though? Are they intentionally making the kid dizzy?
They are, actually. A clinician might literally have the child spin in a desk chair for 30 seconds to induce dizziness.
Right, really?
Yeah. Or they might have them breathe through a thin coffee straw to simulate the feeling of shortness of breath.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Or do a quick set of jumping jacks to get the heart pounding.
That sounds intense, but I mean, I see the logic. They are recreating the physical symptoms of the panic attack without the danger.
They are teaching the brain to decouple the physical sensation from the feeling of impending doom.
The alarm goes off, but there's no fire.
Exactly. The child experiences the dizziness or the fast heartbeat, but the clinician is right there guiding them through it, proving that the sensation peaks and then naturally subsides.
It doesn't end in death.
Right. Over time, the brain stops treating a fast heartbeat as a mortal threat. This cognitive behavioral therapy with interoceptive exposure is the gold standard first-line treatment.
Does medication ever come into play?
It does. The guide notes that medication is sometimes paired with it when clinically necessary, but the exposure therapy is what actually rewires the false alarm.
But this brings up a massive, glaring logistical contradiction to me.
Which one?
We just established that the hallmark symptom of this disorder is a kid actively avoiding school and refusing to leave their safe zone.
Right.
We also just established that the only way to effectively treat this is with a highly specialized, licensed clinician doing targeted exposure therapy. How on earth do those two realities meet?
It's a huge problem.
Right. Getting a teenager who is terrified of having a panic attack to get in a car, drive across town to a strange clinical building, and sit in a waiting room on a Tuesday afternoon seems nearly impossible.
It often is. And the friction of traditional outpatient models is exactly why so many of these students just fall through the cracks.
It's just too much to overcome.
It requires parents to take time off work, pull the kid out of whatever class they actually did manage to attend, and navigate all the transportation.
And for a family already strained by the child's school refusal, those barriers are often insurmountable.
Exactly. And this is where we have to look at the systemic solution, the source material outlines.
Right, the MentalSpace school model.
Yes.
The guide explains that they provide K-12 mental health support directly to schools in Georgia. And the two most vital features they highlight are same-day teletherapy and having dedicated therapist teams assigned to specific schools.
Moving the clinic into the classroom, or at least into the school building via teletherapy, completely bypasses the geographical and logistical bottlenecks.
They meet the kid where they are.
Exactly. If a student's having a crisis or a school nurse recognizes that a student is caught in his panic loop, the intervention can happen right there. There's no driving across town. There is no 3-month waiting list.
But wait, why can't the school just handle this themselves? I mean, schools have guidance counselors. Why do they need an external teletherapy platform?
That's a common question. School counselors are incredibly hardworking professionals, but they are often managing caseloads of hundreds of students.
Which is wild.
It is. Their time is mostly consumed by academic scheduling, college prep, and general behavioral guidance. They are not typically licensed clinical psychologists with the specialized training required to conduct systematic interoceptive exposure therapy.
Oh, okay.
Plus, there's a massive legal barrier.
The HIPAA and FERPA compliance mentioned in the text, I noticed that was highlighted, but to the average person, those are just alphabet soup acronyms. Why is it such a big deal for a school to partner with a medical provider?
Because it is a collision of two completely different regulatory universes.
How so?
So FERPA is the law that protects a student's educational records, their grades, their attendance, their disciplinary history.
Right.
HIPAA is the federal law that protects your medical charts and health information. Historically, trying to get an educational institution and a medical institution to legally share information to help a student is an absolute bureaucratic nightmare.
The walls are designed to be impenetrable for privacy reasons.
Exactly.
So an algebra teacher and a psychiatrist legally can't just hop on a phone call and chat about a student's progress.
No, they really can't.
Yeah.
What the MentalSpace model does is build an infrastructure that threads the needle between both laws.
Oh, that's clever.
By having dedicated therapist teams integrated directly with the school's administration, they create a legally compliant pathway. The school can refer a student, the parents can consent, and the clinicians can deliver KPOC medical care right there on the school campus.
It ensures continuity of care without violating federal privacy statutes.
Exactly.
And it isn't just for panic disorder, right? The text notes this is a holistic safety net.
Yes, very much so.
It includes crisis intervention, suicide and violence prevention, and even family counseling to make sure whatever progress is made in therapy is supported at home.
The home component is so vital.
They also emphasize that the therapists are diverse and culturally competent, which is huge. I mean, if you are a kid in Georgia going through something this vulnerable, you need to feel understood on a cultural level to build the trust required to do something as intense as exposure therapy.
Trust is the absolute foundation of CBT. If the student doesn't feel safe with the clinician on the screen, they just won't engage in the therapy.
But there is a massive roadblock here. You can have the best, most culturally competent, perfectly legal teletherapy system in the world. If families can't afford it, or if the school district goes bankrupt trying to pay for it, it is completely useless.
That is the harsh reality of public health.
Right. But the guide goes deep into the financial mechanics of this, and how they actually fund it is really fascinating.
The funding model is arguably as innovative as the clinical delivery. Historically, when schools try to provide extra mental health support, it comes straight out of the school district's already stretched educational budget.
Right, which means they can afford maybe one extra counselor for a district of 5,000 kids.
Exactly. But according to the source, MentalSpace operates entirely differently.
Yeah, they emphasize that for Medicaid patients, the cost to the family is $0.
$0.
That is a game changer for equity. And for everyone else, they have built a massive network of private insurers. The text lists: Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, Aetna, United Healthcare, Humana, Peach State, CareSource, and Amerigroup.
And the genius of that list isn't just the sheer number of companies. It represents a fundamental shift in how we actually pay for student mental health.
Now so.
By being in-network with both Medicaid and practically every major commercial insurer in the state, MentalSpace is shifting the financial burden away from the school district's educational budget and placing it where it belongs.
On the healthcare system.
Yes,
They are treating it like the medical issue we established it was at the very beginning of our conversation.
precisely. The school facilitates the access, but the healthcare system foots the bill. This removes the financial barrier for the most vulnerable families who rely on Medicaid, while ensuring the program is actually sustainable for the school district.
That makes total sense. But it also leads to the looming deadline mentioned at the very end of the material.
Yes, July 2026.
Right. The guide states that MentalSpace provides support for, quote, HB 268 compliance, end quote, and points to that July 2026 deadline. I looked into this, and it really frames why this is all happening so fast right now.
Legislation is often the primary driver of rapid systemic change. When a state legislature passes a bill like HB 268, it typically mandates that schools upgrade their crisis response protocols and mental health infrastructure by a hard date.
And in Georgia, that clock runs out in July 2026.
Exactly.
So the state is basically telling schools, you have until July 2026 to figure out how to handle the youth mental health crisis on your campuses. But schools aren't built to be hospitals.
No, they are not.
If you are a superintendent or a principal, that mandate has to be terrifying. I mean, you have to figure out how to hire clinicians, navigate HIPAA, build out telehealth software, and figure out medical billing, all while trying to make sure your kids pass state reading exams.
That is exactly why school administrators are scrambling right now, and why turnkey solutions are suddenly so vital. A district just doesn't have the time or the expertise to build a medical clinic from scratch.
They need it out of the box.
Right. A model like MentalSpace School allows an administrator to essentially plug their school into an existing, fully compliant, heavily insured infrastructure.
It solves the problem for them.
It checks the legislative box for HB 268 compliance, but much more importantly, it actually provides a functional safety net for the students. For any educators or parents listening who are dealing with this exact scramble, the source material mentions they can explore the model at mentalspaceschool.com.
It really is a perfect storm of a severe public health need colliding with a strict legislative deadline, which is forcing real innovation.
It really is.
Let's do a quick recap of the journey we've taken today. We started by dismantling the myth that kids having panic attacks are just acting out or being dramatic.
That's right.
We explored the intense physiological reality of the fight-or-flight misfire that drives them to the ER. We broke down the fear of fear cycle, where the terror of having another attack causes kids to avoid school entirely.
The avoidance behavior.
Right, but we also found the hope, it is treatable. Through CBT and interoceptive exposure, clinicians can safely rewire the brain's false alarm.
And do it effectively.
Finally, we looked at how public health is adapting. By bringing same-day fully insured teletherapy directly into Georgia schools, models like MentalSpace are tearing down the logistical and financial barriers, allowing students to get medical care without ever leaving the campus.
It is an incredibly hopeful blueprint for how communities can respond to this crisis. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
It stems from a very small, easily overlooked detail buried in the list of services MentalSpace provides.
What is it?
Amidst all the bullet points about student crisis intervention, suicide prevention, and family counseling, the guide explicitly lists staff wellness.
Staff wellness.
Yeah.
Right. Care for the teachers and the administrators themselves.
Yes. And I really want you to ponder the implications of that. If a modern school system requires an advanced, legally complex, same-day psychiatric teletherapy platform just to manage the daily severe panic, anxiety, and crises of its student body,
Yeah.
what does that imply about the baseline psychological toll on the teachers standing at the front of those classrooms?
Wow. I hadn't thought about that. They are the ones absorbing all of that secondhand trauma day in and day out, while still being expected to teach a curriculum.
They are the unacknowledged first responders to this youth mental health crisis.
Hmm.
So the question becomes, can we ever truly solve the student mental health crisis if we don't simultaneously address the mental health of the educators guiding them?
We have to support the supporters.
The environment itself is absorbing the shockwaves. We have to ensure that people holding the safety net aren't breaking under the weight of it.
That is a profound point. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and we are demanding that our educators pour constantly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
It is a heavy, complex topic, but understanding the actual mechanics of the disorder and seeing the innovative ways schools are rising to the challenge is incredibly empowering.
It absolutely is.
Remember, if you want to explore the specific care models and legislative compliance we discussed today, you can find more information at mentalspaceschool.com. Take care of yourselves, check in on the educators in your life, and we will patch you on the next one.